Thanks everyone for joining me again. And today we're talking about Burning Man. It's a place it's a kind of an event, a place, it's art, it's everything. I remember a photographer had told me about it several years ago. I've never been, to be honest. I'm happy to have Stacey here today to share about Burning Man. Welcome, Stacey.
Hi, how are you?
Good. And you were just telling me before we started recording, you were just there last year again.
Yes, I started going in 2014. And of course, the pandemic, there were 2 years we didn't go. So this year would be
How many times? I'm sorry.
it would be my eighth time to the city,
Oh,
to
wow.
Burning Man.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So what
So,
initially drew you to go? You just wanted to go on your own? Was it?
oh no, I mean, back in 2013, I was just, it was newly in a relationship with Ken, who I call my adventure partner. And he had a friend who had gone to Burning Man and he was looking at the pictures. And so he just randomly said, "Hey, would you want to go to Burning Man?" And I had vaguely heard of it. I thought it was some art festival in the desert, but I meant festival like one of those community art shows that show
Yeah.
painting. I had no clue what it was. And it just happened to be that was the year that Burning Man organization was turning into a nonprofit. So they were going around to the major areas and giving presentations on what they were up to. And so we went. And that was like November of 2013. And it was an amazing event. I got to meet the founder, Larry Harvey, and some other people, and there were so many people in the room, and it was so different from anything that I had, my normal corporate life basically. um and I look at the pictures now, or even a couple of years afterwards, and now it's like people who are complete strangers then now have become friends.
Wow.
So it was really kind of funny that way. um there was a couple at that event that told us all the things to do as new people, and they said you've got to go to these other things called they're we call them virgin outings. My friend, he's now my friend, but this guy Bobby Hedgeland Taylor, um events to introduce people who had never been to Burning Man before and got them together with veterans. So he called them
Oh.
virgin, Burning Man
Yeah.
virgins. um and he helped us get all of the things ready, and so there's a lot you need to do. And so you start prepping in January, really,
Oh, wow.
for an event that's in August, especially since at the time I lived in New York City.
Oh, uh-huh.
I live in Oregon now, but at the time I was in New York City, so getting to the desert in Nevada from New York City, feet. So um so he really helped introduce us to a whole lot of things, and then after our first time we started helping him out with the outings and stuff, and helping other people get prepared. So there's a lot you should do, and my first year I had just turned 50. So yeah, anybody of any age can go. They have kid camps. I have a friend who was she turned 70 for her first year, and I
Wow.
think this year will be her fifth or sixth year going now. So there's people of all ages that go, and the founders are now in their 70s or 80s, and they're still going.
Really? Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
been going on for a while, and it seems like each year it kind of builds and changes and
Well, it's meant to. It's not a festival. Um, and that was one of the things, like with the questions you sent, you keep saying festival, and the media keeps calling it a festival, and it's not a festival, because a festival is curated by the people who put it on. Burning Man is more. It's hard to explain because it's different for everybody who goes,
right.
but it's an event where the people who go are the creative ones that are putting on the event. So participation, there's 10 principles, and participation is one of them. So you go expecting that you're going to become engaged, that you're going to be involved. And artists will go, or even non-artists, I became an artist over the years,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
you become engaged. Like the art out there is, I mean, there's some pieces that are tremendously huge and some that are small, but they all expect that you're going to engage with them. So, there's a lot of art that is purposely built so that you can climb on it,
Wow.
or that there's interaction with it somehow.
Right.
There's just always something. Um, and that's been the best part. For me, I love the art. I mean, for some people it's a big party, but me, it's all about I love just the art. Um, and uh, the first year we camped with a theme camp, one of the biggest theme camps that's been there for, like, I think he's now been there 18 years. I'm not sure.
Oh,
It's
wow.
called Costume Cult. And the first year we were, shiny and new, and we went there in our little RV, and or we rented an RV and went, which was, it was a nice thing to have because there was air conditioning and a shower,
Yeah.
but it's a better experience going in a tent
Oh,
and
really?
camping with others. So because we were part of a large camp, there was infrastructure.
Mm.
We had shade structures that go over our tents to help keep the cool off. There was the camp provided a generator so you could have power for your, charging your phones, which, there's no real signal out there. So I use my phone just as a camera.
Right, right.
Um, and some people don't even bother taking pictures. They just go and experience and be present. But I cater to my mother, so I take pictures because she wants to see all the things.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, she wants to participate through the photos. Wow.
Yeah, but the photos don't even really cover, it. It's so different being there than looking at the photos. I mean, I know because I see it both ways.
Right.
Um, but yeah, and so, like, and you are in the middle. It's a lake bed desert, and which means it's flat. There's absolutely nothing there. It's not like there's no cactus or there's no little animals, just flat. And dust gets everywhere. And one of the funny signs that somebody created as art a few years ago says, dust gets in curious places,
Uh-huh.
because dust does get everywhere.
Wow.
And that's the thing about renting an RV, is that they will ding you for it coming back dusty. And
Oh,
it's an alkaline dust, so the only way you can really get it off of things is like with white vinegar.
really? Oh
And
my gosh, it's just kind of sticks then.
it's a fine powder, basically.
Wow.
Like, like plasterboard gypsum,
Yeah, right.
that's what it's like. That's what it's like. It's very fine, and dust storms happen. Last year we had probably the biggest dust storms I've ever seen. The first couple of years, they were like little twisters going around,
Right.
and it was fun. But last year was very dusty, very
Oh,
hot, very dusty. So, so if you're gonna go, you have to be prepared that you're gonna be in very hot, or it could get cold. There's been years where you're wearing like faux fur coats at night because it's almost 30 degrees.
oh wow.
So yeah,
Yes,
it
the
can get very cold and very
extreme.
hot.
Yeah, it's the
And you
definitely
don't and you don't know ahead of time what you're going to get. You just
no.
don't.
Yeah, you just
So
wait.
you have to pack all the things.
Yeah, that's the thing that sounds kind of like you said overwhelming, just the packing. I mean, what do people do for food? Everybody just has to bring their own food for the 4, 5 days that you're there, or
It's an 8-day event. It always ends the Monday after Labor Day, because the Saturday of Labor Day weekend is when they burn the man. It's
right?
a great big bonfire. Um, and it starts the Sunday before. So it's an 8-day event. Um, I mean, there are some people that come in other times and they regret it because there's so much to do. You can't ever do all the things. So one of the life lessons you learn is how to deal with FOMO, because you can't do all the things. Like your friend will be like, "Oh, did you do blah blah blah?" And then like like, no, and you're like, oh, I missed out. But then you went and did something different. So you just have to accept where you are is where you're going to be. So, um, yeah, it's like I feel like the dust is still in my brain. So yeah, so when you're thinking about going, you do have to prepare. And coming from New York is a lot different than coming from the West Coast. What I noticed, like in New York, you really have, or the East Coast, or even abroad, you have to prepare differently
Yeah.
because everybody has a bicycle out there. That's how you get around. Um, you can't drive your car, so you drive your car in and you park it.
Okay.
You're not allowed to drive it around. Only, there's only special people, like the people. It's a city of
Right.
70,000 people, so that it has infrastructure. Like the, Burning Man organization has a whole DPW. They have different departments and things like that. But yes, you have to bring everything in. So the closest city is Reno. So a lot of times people will either, uh, coming from the West Coast, you can bring your food with you easier. But
Yeah.
coming from the West Coast, you tend to go shopping before.
Right.
So when I was part of the large camp, we would go, there was a few years that I went a week early for what they call build week. And um, our camp was around 150 people or so. And they do have people at Burning Man that have, if your camp is over 100 people, there is an inspection. Your kitchen has to be up to snuff.
Oh, really?
Uh, yeah. So it's kind of serious business out there.
Yeah.
So we went shopping at, the Costco's and the Walmart and everything and spending thousands of dollars on food to have it brought in. And there's also, um, there's ways, if you start to get to know, that there are suppliers that will bring in like fresh produce during the middle of the week, but you get what you get. One year we had um, a mistake on the order and we had so many Brussels sprouts.
Oh no, really?
Like I
So,
still like Brussels sprouts, but most of my campmates don't like it anymore.
right, I bet. It's like, yep, we got Brussels sprouts again. And tonight we have Brussels. Oh my gosh.
Yep. So, and when it comes to showers, it's the camp showers, but you have to get rid of the gray water. It doesn't necessarily evaporate in the dry desert zone, especially if a lot of people are taking showers daily or whatever. It's a lot of water going through. So at one point, our camp started getting hired uh, one of the utilities to remove the gray water for us. So you have to pay for it to be removed because one of the other principles is leave no trace.
Right.
So having too much water on the ground leaves trace. So
Right.
you gotta get rid of it. Um, yeah, so there's a lot of things to consider. So like uh last year, last 2 years, or last two times, we camped with a smaller camp that didn't have any gray water. So we didn't shower there. We would, go find other places to shower, which there are, you
Right.
know. There's camps that offer showers, or there's one that we liked, which is they offered a steam bath. So it
Oh,
was like a hot sauna in the middle of the hot
in the
desert,
in the
but it
desert.
was it was fabulous. It was absolutely fabulous.
Oh
So,
wow.
and you learn to pack things. You learn, I mean, that's what you learn from why like the Virgin outings were so great, because you learn like you bring, and there are on the internet also like a lot of people put out lists of what to pack, and they are very helpful. So it's like you bring baby wipes to clean yourself off or clean your dishes off. You learn to bring a cup everywhere because it's a gifting economy. So everybody goes, that's where there's no money in a
Okay.
sense, because everybody, gifting is one of the principles, and everybody goes there with the idea that they're going to give something. It's not
Okay.
about the getting, it's about the giving. And what you get is the pleasure of giving. So, and that's what, why it's like you don't know what entertainment is going to be gifted, and it's not like and Burning Man doesn't like to promote like, oh, so and so DJ is going to be there.
Right.
You don't really know until you show up,
Right.
and then you get the schedule. Um, So, everything's going to be different. There's no guarantees of anything. And especially since like a DJ, he might have gotten a heat stroke and
Right.
might not show up. So you don't know.
Right.
Um, and my camp, my first camp that I was with, the big camp, gifted costumes.
Oh.
So we had a whole costume tent that people would, and you
Ah,
interact,
right.
so my camp gifted costumes. We brought about 7,000 costumes a year.
Wow.
Uh, yeah. And would give them out. And, part of my job during the rest of the year was getting more costume donations in so that people can then go out. Um, and then we built a whole, what we call a frontage. And that's what one of the things that my partner did. He ended up being one of the build leads. And we made it like a New York theme.
Oh,
And that's
cool.
where, like, over the years I progressed. Like, one year I built a taxi for as it was like 8 by 6 feet. It was like a big wooden bench in a sense
Right,
with two
right.
sides that looked like a taxi cab, a yellow cab. And it was part of the New York scene of our frontage. And then the following year, I actually stepped up and became a registered artist on Playa, and I had like 6 of these things out out in the wild, and that was
Wow.
quite an adventure learning how to become an artist because you also have to have things lit up because there's no street lights and
Mm.
you don't want people or art cars running your art project over.
Right. That would be
So
horrible, yeah.
yeah, and then that's the other thing too is that people are lit up at night. So there's some people who go really amazing with the LED artwork for light, and then there's some of us that just string Christmas lights around ourselves and we're okay, and
Yeah,
our bicycles. You have
right.
to make sure your bike's lit up, and because everybody has a bike, you try and decorate your bike individually so you can recognize it and go back and get it.
Oh, that's right.
So
I didn't even think of that. All the, but how do you find your
yeah,
bike? You're right. Once you leave it somewhere.
yep, yep. So there's a lot of that going on. Um,
So
Yeah,
have
so
you
and
already joined a camp as such then for if you're planning, are you planning on going this year?
we have tickets. We have tickets and we have friends that we're going to be camping with. Um so but there I mean there's such a wide variety of ways to get there. I mean there's some people that just go in what they call free camping. So they'll go by themselves or they'll go with just a small group of friends and find a spot that hasn't been assigned.
Oh,
The theme camps and other bigger groups, you get assigned ahead of time. Like you sign up and say we need X amount of space,
okay.
and and Burning Man also says, well, what are you going to do for interactivity? So that's part of what you gift. So like my former camp costume cult gave out costumes. My new camp we hand out lemonade,
Mm,
different flavored lemonade, and we do entertainment. People are standing in line and we do whatever games and it's just
yeah,
fun.
right.
And there's a lot of people that have bars that they, give out booze or that's why you have to have a cup to always go around in case. Um, there's all sorts of food. I mean, there really is a
Oh,
lot of food that
really?
people give it out. Yeah. Some camps give out, I remember one camp giving out crepes, and they were delicious. Um, there's one camp that does a seder, the Jewish
Right,
seder, like on a
okay.
Friday night. Um, there are coffee camps. I mean, there's just peanut butter and jelly camps. I mean, there's just all sorts of things that are. I mean, it's pretty incredible what you find out there. And then there's also what are called art cars or mutant vehicles, where people have converted anything from a golf cart to RVs to fire trucks into art.
Okay.
So one of my favorites and one of the classics is a converted RV that is called the Monaco, but it looks like a 1774 sailing ship.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I think they said 74.
Wow.
Anyway, um, so I mean, you're only allowed to go 5 miles per hour, but when the wind is up, they will put the sails up, and it's like a real sailing ship. It's absolutely amazing,
That is
and
amazing.
they are not pirates; they are navy. Just so you know, if you happen to go there and you're like, hey, matey, give me a, I'm a pirate, let me
Yeah.
on. They'll be like, nope.
Oh my gosh.
Um, yeah, they're, so I mean, and there's other, there was one art car that went around that looked like a steampunk octopus called El Pupo Mecanico. And then he came back, he sold that, and then he came back with a newer version, El Pupo Fantastico, I think he called the new one anyway. And it was even better than the first one. It was just absolutely stunning.
Oh my gosh.
Fire coming out of every. I mean, it was just amazing, absolutely
Wow.
amazing. So, yeah, it's a. When I traveled for years, I never liked going to the same place twice because there's so much of the world to explore.
Yes.
You know,
Right.
but I'm going to Burning Man again for the eighth time or whatever, because it's never the same place twice. Yes, it's in the desert, Black Rock City. It's in Nevada, but it is never, because everybody brings something different every single year.
Wow.
And the weather's different and everything's different. And so it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, I would, if you, the challenge is to get tickets. I mean, it is something you have to start early, and you do have to start networking. Um, because they sell the tickets in different tiers. So like in January, February, I think it is, they start selling tickets that are basically twice the cost. And
Oh,
the organization does that to help support the low income tickets. But they
okay.
like are a guarantee. Like you can just pay this, instead of paying 500, you're paying 1,500 or something like that. I don't really know. I don't
Right.
pay that. I don't do
Yeah.
that. So but that's a way to guarantee that you're going. Then there's directed group sales, and I think they've actually changed the name, but that's when you're part of a large camp,
Right.
um, and you need the support to get it built. So you get access to tickets through that. They give you access if you've been an artist that's been on Playa before. So like when I had my art installation, I had access to tickets the next year.
Oh, okay.
Um, but that's, because art is so important there. Um, and then there's the main sale where you're competing with everybody, and so it's like you're pre-registered, you're on your computer, and you're trying to very second it opens because it will sell out within 15 minutes, and it has.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they have another program after that that's like an OMG sale, and then low income. So they try and spread it out. um, and then they have a program, and because they want to keep it away from scalpers,
Oh, yeah.
the way you resell tickets, like if I decide I don't want to go and I have my tickets, I will go into what's called the Burning Man Step program and resell it there, unless I know somebody that I can just hand my ticket to,
Yeah.
because you don't want to buy it from strangers.
Okay.
Because there are so many scammers out there,
Wow.
and it's really sad because apparently there's, people who are coming from Europe or wherever, and they have a bad ticket and they can't get in.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
bad.
So,
They've made the long journey and then you're right, they have this fake ticket or whatever and are turned away. Do
hmm
people come, like if they're in the Reno or the surrounding areas, do some people pay but just come for like the day and not stay in the camps, or that's not really, and you may
well,
not
it's
even know that, so, you know.
Well, people in the local area, I guess, are given special access if they want to come. A lot of them also work, like
Oh,
they're part of the support system.
right.
But yeah, they're people that live locally and will just come like for the weekend or whatever, you know, if they want to. Some of them, it all depends. Um, yeah, and there's people that are coming and going all the time, so it all depends. Um, Yeah, so if you live in Reno, they have different things because Reno's become a very big burner community in a
Right.
sense.
And just to support this event, I mean, with that many thousands of people.
Yeah, yeah. One of the liquor stores said it's the second biggest time of year next to Christmas for them. You know?
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah. So really, if for like you were asking, like how do people get involved with it? Um, the first place I would go to is Facebook and find the local burner groups in your area. Like you're in Los Angeles, and as far as I know, there's two or three different groups that get together. There's like East Side or
Oh,
whatever.
wow.
There's
Right.
different groups that get together. New York City has a happy hour every single Wednesday, and they have for the past 12 years or something. And it's always um, it's at a different bar, but it's usually a burner owned bar or a burner friendly bar kind of thing. Um, and that's one way to get to know people. And like I said, I joined a camp, and um, that's another way is like if you start to get to know those people and somebody has an extra ticket or
Oh, right.
they decide in July they're not going, you can get a ticket, that kind of thing. So that's where the getting to know the people. But there are other events like Burning Man has been around 30 over 30 years. Now
Wow.
I can't remember if it's 32 or 35 at this point, but it's been around a very long time. Um, and so what they've done beyond that is that there's now what are called regionals. So there's one in almost every state. There's one in uh, lots of different countries have them. Like the second biggest burn is in Israel, and then
Really?
there's one in Africa. Um, and then there's smaller regionals. Like there's one in San Diego, I think called Utopia. There's one in Santa Cruz called Uncruise. Up here in Oregon, there's one called Soak. There's a couple in New York. There's one that I went down to in Washington, D.C.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. That would be a
so
place
there,
you wouldn't expect to have this kind of art, music, free living, free thinking, event, to be honest. So,
yeah, no, they're everywhere. I mean, there's a couple in Texas. There's some in Kansas. I think the society in the Midwest is like there's tall. I think it's called tall grass burners is what they call themselves. I mean that's where the Facebook groups are help you, and also the Burning Man website is an amazing resource. Um, that's one way to like. There's a section where you say like find burners near you or something, and you can go and sign up for the emails for the local groups. And they often will send out emails saying, all right, happy hour, like in New York, it's
yeah.
like, okay, happy hour is going to be here this week. Um, and then the Facebook groups and things like that. There are some activity on Reddit, but every burner I've ever met is like, I had to create a Facebook profile just to understand, to connect to the other burners.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. So yeah, I mean, the best way is to really to get to know other burners, and everybody loves talking about Burning Man, and so it's good to have that kind of community of people who get it, because when you talk to other people outside of it, their eyes start to glaze over.
Yeah, we're like, what? Like you said,
Like,
it's not a festival. There's music, there's food, there's art, but yeah, it is. I
I
think
always like describing it as a city of 70,000 highly creative individuals.
that's a good way to describe it. It sounds like it, especially because it sounds like you are, as you said, you're expected to participate. You're not there to just be a bystander.
Yeah,
In fact, that sounds
yeah.
like it might be frowned upon. So,
Well, the phrase for people who come unprepared are called sparkle ponies.
okay.
They think that just because they're pretty, they can get away with it, but they can dehydrate just like anybody else. So, yeah, you need to bring, I think they say bring at least 2 gallons of water a day, like 1 gallon for drinking and one for showering or whatever. But I mean,
Wow.
you drink you don't even realize how much you dehydrate. I have, one of the really tall bottles that I bring with me, and then I also have the electrolytes
Right, right.
because to keep it in, and I bring packets of them because I go through so much, and after a while water starts tasting, you're like, ugh. It
Right,
tastes like
right,
plastic or it tastes like whatever, it's not fresh out of the tap.
right.
um so it's necessary to have water, and coffee and booze is just not going to be enough.
No.
And it's hard to keep, and if you're going on your own, it is hard to keep the food fresh. It really is. So, yeah, there's a lot of things like that. Um,
Is it a place where you feel introverts would feel comfortable, or would it be a challenging situation for someone who's generally an introvert as such? Because it sounds like such a people-centric event, like 24/7.
oh yeah, I mean, there's something there for everybody. I mean, you can engage with the art and not engage with people, and that's fine. You know, um, uh, I remember what there was one young man who was incredibly shy. I was at the costuming thing,
Yeah.
and um, his buddy came up and he was like warning us all, like, don't overwhelm him. He wants to try this. Give him, so we gave him as much latitude as he needed. And we're like, okay, so we didn't like bombard him with, do a
Yeah.
fancy trick or whatever. And he went through the line and he went into the costume tent and he came out with just a simple cape. I mean, he didn't go like, space cowboy slash, because you can do all the things, slash cookie monster or whatever.
Right, right.
And he just came out with a cape and you could see how he was just transformed. He felt like a superhero. He was
Wow.
still a basic introvert, but it just gave him like his own superpower, and he went off and had a great day.
Oh,
So
fabulous.
yeah, I mean, and there's, um, they have a whole lot. There's a whole camp for people who are handicapped, disabled.
Right.
Um, so camps are a lot of the bigger theme camps are aware of that to try and make sure that you're ADA accessible, so it's
Yeah.
not, even though everybody laughs and says safety third, we're actually very inclusive of making sure we make it accessible for those who have to be on wheels
Right.
or whatever,
Right.
you know um yeah, so when you're, inclusivity, uh it's I know Burning Man has a reputation for being very white and very tech bro or whatever, but it is a lot more when you get there. And I know that in the past several years the organization's been trying to reach out more to the people of color community, making bigger efforts to see why,
Yeah.
how they can do it.
Right.
And so it seems to be working. I mean, uh, I have I've seen friends who have been growing that group more, you know, and um, I've made good friends that are a variety of colors out there, you know, admitting I'm, one of the white people.
Right. No, I understand. Yeah, but it does. It sounds like you've made some lifetime friends from going to this particular event.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely have made some really good friends, and it is something like, um, they say when you've gone through a really hard time together with somebody, that's when, you've got that thing together. And Burning Man, on the back of your ticket, it says you can die, and people have,
Right.
you know, mostly out of their own stupidity. But um, that's the thing, is like you are still camping in the desert.
Right.
So, and there is a lot of partying going on, and there are dangerous things that could happen,
Right.
and there are large bonfires, and and just because you're there doesn't mean that suddenly everybody's wholesome and nice. There's still, there's jerks in the real world. There are jerks at Burning Man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just the honest truth, right. So I noticed
Mhm.
your website, you talk a lot about finding fun. So is that something that came out of some of these experiences, is sharing that kind of methodology or thinking of life is to be fun and embraced?
Actually, I had it more before going. When I was after I got divorced and break up with a person I should never have gotten involved with. Um, I needed to find what I found fun. I was a recovering people pleaser.
Yeah.
And so that's where my website's called Adventure Wednesdays, because that was when I had time to go and take myself out. I didn't have the kids, they were at their dad's. And so after work, I would take myself out and go explore New York City on my own to find what I found fun
Nice.
versus what other people liked.
Right.
And it was after having done that for several years that I came across my now adventure partner of 10 years, um, while I was out having fun. It's how we met, and it was not like I was looking for a partner. He just happened to be there. And since we were both having fun, we already had something in common.
Right.
But because I had shifted my mindset to finding what I, wanted to have fun and adventures, I was open to the idea of trying this wildly crazy idea.
Right.
And it did open up my world a lot more because I was in corporate advertising sales, and New York City, I mean, the dress code is black.
Yeah. Oh,
And
totally.
then
Yeah.
all of a sudden my world opened up to colors, is really the best way to put it. Um yeah, the variety of people that I met, really, I learned, I thought by 50 I knew it all, and I didn't. And it was just wonderful what I came across.
Yeah.
Um, and it was a lot more fun, and that's one of the things about Burning Man is that you can experiment with who you want to be or discover who you really are, that kind of thing. Sometimes you have to break down to rebuild in a sense, so because of the harsh conditions, it can break you down,
Oh, yeah.
and I've had my own meltdowns, but other people have had some serious meltdowns, but it brings you out,
Well, yeah.
um one, or at least one would hope. But there's some people who've been going for 18, 20 years and they're still
So
self-centered.
amazing. Yeah. It is really
Yeah.
amazing that's lasted this long when you think about it. It's just continued to go on.
Yeah, it evolves, and it changes, and that's the thing. That's like one, it has a different theme every year, but really the theme isn't. It's just for inspiration. Um, it to help people, inspire creativity or whatever. For the heck of it, I
Right.
don't think it really means anything different. It just means that it's just another fun twist to it.
Right. Right.
So, one of the things that um I did get, since I was very involved with the big camp costume cult,
Yeah.
and I was very involved in the community, I actually was elected to go to Burning Man would have these global leader conferences, and that was really impressive. And I got to meet some really fantastic people there from all over.
Wow.
In fact, one of my best friends lives in LA, and I met her at the conference in San Francisco, and I was still in New York. And I think for the probably past 7 years, we've talked almost weekly, every single day, just like on telephone,
Right.
just about things that we have in common. And then we'd see each other at Burning Man for a day. you know,
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. Um, and then I also got to meet a lot of the leaders and the philosophers. And one of the philosophers of Burning Man is this man, Caveat Magistrate is his name. And it's like I'm in love with him. He has the most fantastic speaking voice, and he tells stories so well, and he's so deep and philosophical, and just has a fantastic point of view about life. And he wrote a book that,
Oh.
I think new people should. I mean, I listened to it, and that was my biggest mistake. I should have actually physically bought it,
Right.
because when I was listening to it, I kept stopping and having to write all the quotes down.
Yeah, right. I know you can't highlight it. I
I could
know.
not highlight it. It's called The Scene That Became Cities.
The scene.
And it really talks, yeah, The Scene That Became Cities. And it's written by Caveat Magistrar. And it feels like it has like almost like some life lessons in there and deep philosophical thoughts, but it also really talks about how Burning Man started off as this, um, kind of like, let's just go out and try this weird thing, and it turned into
Yeah.
this incredible life changing experience for many people. And it's hard to replicate. It really is. Um, Partly because of the harsh conditions, partly because of the attitude, partly because of the different things that come every year to it. But I would recommend that book as a way to understand better the mindset that is there, and also get involved with the community. Really, the best way. Some people can pack up and just go on a whim, like somebody finds them a ticket last
Yeah,
minute,
right.
and but I just find you have a better experience if you're prepared. Especially since things like making sure you have enough sunscreen, enough water, enough eye goggles, and
Yeah.
hot clothes and warm clothes, and and the food that you're going to need. Some of the stuff like that.
Yeah, really
It
the
really
basics because it is such a harsh environment. If you're not prepared, that's gonna
and there's no store right there. It's not
Right.
like you can, there's no store at the gate. There's no going in and out. You have to bring everything in and you bring everything out, and that's including your trash.
Wow.
There's no dumpsters. So, um, yeah, and if you don't bring a bicycle, it's hard to get around because it's a big area. So you just don't get to see as you just don't get to see as much. You know, um, um, One of the things that I like to do every year is they have art tours.
Oh, that sounds
Like
interesting.
they're
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And often they meet a couple times a day, but I like going on the morning, and usually artists are there like checking on their art, um, making sure the batteries are working, or the solar power, or however they've powered it up, and probably cleaning it up from whatever, because you have to monitor if you're leaving no trace. You got to make sure your area is clean.
Right.
um and and it's the desert, so things can go wrong. So I've met a lot of artists that way, just by going on this tour. And then the people who are leading it have been involved with what's called the Artery, which is the main art center, where the artists register and get
Right.
support systems and stuff. And so they know all about the art, so they'll tell you things that you wouldn't have known. And it's just fun to bicycle around and see it that way.
Yeah, that sounds
And
really neat.
yeah, so because there is so much art out there that even if you try to see everything, you still kind of don't always see everything.
Yeah, because
So
I'm trying to picture even how many miles this area must cover, and it may vary year to year.
no,
Of
it's the same. It's the same year to year. I just always forget, because they tell you it's acres, it's miles, it's big. And they have an ultra marathon
Oh,
on I think it's Tuesday morning. They start at like 4 a.m. so that they're done by like before it gets too hot.
yeah.
And I've have a friend who's done that every single year. And that's, to me, it's just astounding.
Yeah,
That might be the
exactly.
morning I wake up and like wave at them, it's
Right,
like, oh,
exactly. Like, what are you doing?
yeah. So yeah, every year there's always something different. Um, like all the different art over the years, that's always stunning. So there's never one thing that just sticks in your head. It's just like multiple things, you
Wow.
know. So, and it's just sometimes describing it doesn't give you the same thing as in person. Just kind of crazy. And then there's, and then like Las Vegas. there's, I think it's called Area 51 or
Yeah.
something. I don't
Uh-huh.
know, some goofy thing. But that has a lot of Burning Man art. Like a lot of the art that has been at Burning Man is now going out into the world.
Oh, okay.
Reno, a lot of the hotels have been having artwork installed there.
That makes
Um,
sense afterwards. So it has a place, it has an ongoing, because especially when they
yeah,
created this thing, they're not
yeah,
necessarily able to take it if they came in from some other place.
or burn it.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
A lot of art gets burned, not just the man. Um, so yeah, so I know Las Vegas has started having a whole lot of things. I know there was a winery that had one. Portland has had, artists up there, and they even had a whole recent like light show that was made by the local burners. LED lights that were, stories high kind of thing, really fantastic. Um, yeah, and that's all over. I mean,
Wow.
lots of places. So, um, yeah, it's fun. I mean, that's what I like about it.
Well, and it just sounds
um,
like a lot of thought actually goes into it with the camps being set up like the week before and yeah, just a coordination of everything. I mean, that's in itself huge. And then, like you said,
it is.
everything cleaned up, no trace, gone at the end.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, there's a whole team at the Burning Man organization that kind of, I mean, they're part of the DPW does come and clean sweep because um the federal government that the BLM,
Right.
um
The land management. Yeah.
land management, um they uh give us a score, and if we fail, then they won't let them back. So they do everything they can to make sure that they pass with getting all the stuff up. But the in turn, Burning Man organization, besides making a principle of leave no trace, also scores people. So there's some camps that will fail and they won't get placement next year, or they won't be allowed to come back.
Okay.
Kind of that kind of thing. Um, so like my camp has done well. I mean, the big theme camp that I was at, there was one year that we kind of got a warning, and so we had to shape up for the following year, and we did fine.
Right.
So so things happen. And last year, it being so incredibly dusty, I
Yeah.
mean, the dust storms were just incredible. Like it's whiteout after whiteout.
Oh, wow.
Made it really hard for everybody to clean up properly, because you think you did, because the wind came and covered everything and you
Right.
couldn't see it, or the second like you tried to uncover it, it gets covered again. So it was a very challenging year. It was a very challenging
Yeah,
year.
that sounds very challenging. Just the winds and keeping up with securing things too with the heavy winds.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's one of the other things of why you want to get to know other people who have gone before, because you don't want to bring just those little plastic tent the little
Yeah.
plastic tent stakes. You want rebar that's like, goes in, and then learn how to get that back out. Um, and things like that, and the extra shade structures and all the things.
Well, just the etiquette. I'm sure there's some like Burning Man kind of etiquette too as to treating other people and how to go from camp to camp and visiting camps. I mean, it sounds kind of open, but still, I'm sure there's some.
Um, well, I'm sure it's just general civility, but I mean, we do have the 10 principles, and I know them, but it's going to be hard for me to list them all.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
no.
you were saying, there's radical self-reliance, but there's also the community aspect. So that's like, it's almost like there's a counterbalance to each of
Right,
the guiding principles.
right.
Radical inclusion, um, as well as radical self-reliance, that kind of thing. Um, there's a leave no trace is one, gifting is one, participation is one. Um, Now, you see, I'm not
No, that's
remembering all
okay.
all 10 of them. Civic mindedness is one of them. And then the 11th principle is consent. And that's unspoken, or it's not written down. But like when I did a volunteer shift at greeters, like when you come in, you go through the ticket booth
Right.
and they make sure that you're not smuggling anybody in your truck or whatever.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then you go to what they call as greeters, and that's where they're like, "Hey, here's your booklet for all the events and welcome." And it's like it's really a fun place to be because everybody's so excited. You're finally through the
Yes.
line. You're finally about to be there, and you get given the booklet. And if they want hugs, you give them hugs, and you kind of give them the lay of the land, um, real quick. And that's where the greeters, like the year I did it, we said, look, consent is sexy, you know, make sure it's a hell yes, that
Right.
kind of thing.
Right. Right.
So, there are, like I said, people are still people, and they're still going to be jerks, and some of them are jerks on drugs and dehydrated. So, you still have to, people will look out for each other, but there's still going to be moments where it could be a little shaky for no matter who you are.
Right.
And there have been things stolen, and there have been, so there's just stuff that still happens. And there are 5 levels of police around. There's the Burning Man Rangers, who are there to help you. They're like Boy Scouts,
Right.
um, you know, whose job is to help you survive,
Right.
basically.
Right.
And then there's the county police, and then there's the state police, and then there's the federal, and then there's so you got to be careful, and that's one of the things that you learn from others is like, don't accept, if anybody asks you, do you have drugs? The answer is no. And if anybody says, do you want drugs? You say no, because you don't know who you're talking to. If it's
Right.
somebody you don't know, not even somebody you've just met, because there's been stories about like even undercover FBI being naked. You're like, oh, you can't be FBI, you're naked. No, they are.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And so it's using caution and using your brain, or just knowing that if you get caught, you get caught, and that's the consequences.
There are consequences, right?
There are. And you do have to have ID. Like you have to be 21 to drink, and they will. Most of the bars will ask to see it. So uh, I'm not a big drinker out there, so I don't know what it was like last year because I just went with friends. I did, I don't go bar
Right.
hopping.
Right.
I guess I'm at a point in my life where I want really good liquor. I don't
Yeah.
want to just go for the stuff that people are just dishing out. So
Right.
I
The
bring my
giveaway.
own, and that's
Right.
enough,
Yeah. Well,
or I
then when
hang
it's
with friends.
that hot and the dehydration factor, I mean, you really kind of have to be watching out just to survive the environment.
Yeah. I mean, and there is a lot, and it can be fun, but that's just not, you know, it's no longer what I like to do, but there's plenty of people that do. So,
Yeah.
and I have to admit, a cold beer on a hot afternoon is still a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and my friend's favorite camp is called Bubbles and Bass, and they open up at sunrise having champagne
Oh my
and
gosh.
music. So there's something for everybody.
It sounds like it. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so much fun, Stacey, to chat about Burning Man and hear everything. Is there a website in case people want to reach out to you or check out your Finding Fun? I think you have a free ebook as well. And
Yeah, my website is adventurewednesdays.com, and the best place if you want to email me, it's Stacey at adventurewednesdays.com. I have to actually fix up my website because I have a little book me button on there that doesn't work anymore. Um, but I think I still have a contact page. Um, but yeah, I've written about Burning Man, and one of my latest passions has become researching about pirates and chocolate.
oh,
And so I'm in the middle of writing books, a history book, and then the other one is going to be a bestseller slash blockbuster movie, if you think Pirates of the Caribbean 20, the chocolate edition, that's going to be mine.
Ooh,
Um,
this sounds good
and
already.
and that's the fun thing about Burning Man is um, I had the opportunity to get up and speak about it,
Oh,
and I'm not really great at speaking in front of crowds, but it's okay because it's Burning Man and you're allowed to experiment. And I had a great time, and people came up and afterwards and said it was just fantastic. And it's like, oh, wow, that's good to know. Yeah, it's like, oh,
yeah, yeah. It's that positive reinforcement that we all need for the crazy idea that we've not
yeah,
hatched. And here you've got just a group of people, most of them you probably have never ever met, and
yeah,
they're
yeah.
open.
I mean, and that's what's so awesome about it is that you do get to try new things, and that's where another way to grow.
Yeah.
Not just the mental breakdowns you can have from the heat and the drastic, but there's also a lot of opportunity to do things out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So it is great. So yeah, so if um yeah, I mean I'm always happy to answer questions about Burning Man. Um but really the best thing is to go to the Burning Man website, join a local group and get to know other burners.
Yeah, and we'll put the links in the chat and in the description. So thank you so much, Stacey, for your time this morning. This has been fun.
Thank you.
And I'm looking
Thank
forward to
you.
your book about chocolate and pirates. It sounds so cool.
Hopefully soon. Thanks.
Thanks.